It's better. Right.
Colin.
Guys, welcome to episode 11 of Changing Gears. I think it's 11. It's 11 or 12. We're calling it 11 for this purpose. You'll see whether I got it wrong or not in the title if you're watching on YouTube or, of course, listening on Apple, Spotify. But welcome to Changing Gears, episode number 11, 12. Who knows? Let's review San Diego. Let's be honest. This is what we're here to do. I have Toby and Colin, who was, of course, there to break things down, to give our fallout from what was a diabolical result for Europe overall. It has to be said. We'll get into it in a second. But how you guys doing, Colin? How are we feeling? Are we over the land blues yet?
I'm still reeling. Okay, I played last night, and all I could think about was, damn, I miss seeing this game on land. Damn, I did. Hurt.
It did look good. It did look good. It was an enjoyable watch. Toby, how are we doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I got so much coursework to do by Christmas that I'm very stressed at the moment. And I didn't do any coursework during the event. And so I'm kind of catching up with myself now because I was busy watching the event the whole time and enjoying it. I really enjoyed it, but I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Yes. So Reciprocity come out on top in end. Let's talk about them first. Let's talk about the winners first. Reciprocity. A very, very good tournament. It's nice to see somebody different come out on top. That was my first thought initially, and what to come back from them in the finals as well. Well deserved, though, you feel, Colin?
Very well deserved. I actually thought it was really poetic because I'm going to take you way back in the history vault. Toby, I'm sure remembers this. The last time Franchise was playing in a real best-of-5 situation, he went up 2 maps to none. He was on match, map, and tournament point when Explosive, Mental, Lava, and at the time Kenny brought it all the way back to take 3 maps in a row, shut him down, and win the tournament way back in Gears of War UE, way back there. And ever since then, he's almost had this like stigma where once he gets the grand finals, it kind of falls apart for him and his team. And then he goes down 0-2 maps. And I'm sitting there in the green room and I'm starting to shake my head because everybody kind of knows it's kind of a joke at this point how before I got in the scene, Fran was my favorite player. And to see him help his team work back 3 straight maps, for me, it was poetic. It was beautiful. It was everything I could have wished for, especially with a guy like Kenny on that team, a guy like Icy on that team, 2 former members of that old NRG roster when they were under redacted banner. And you see them get that W under their belt, especially for a guy like Powers, his first championship. I loved it. I thought it was the best possible outcome for our game. Outside of maybe just the sheer fact that Latin America has that passionate fan base and getting them energized behind a world champion, maybe you could make that argument. But I was happy for Rec. I was super happy.
Toby, good performance from Rec. You happy with it?
Yeah, very happy. There were times while watching them that I thought there was rounds that they really could have secured as expected, but there were times where like they were really outclassed as well by their opposition. And at that point, I was getting worried. I was thinking, hey, I thought this could be a Rec event now that NRG are out. I thought this is, going to be a smooth sailing. But even throughout the final, as Colin said, 2 maps down, I was like, wow, this is actually not going to happen for them all of a sudden because they've got such great opposition. And then, as Colin mentioned, that the grand final issue for Rec is like it's in the history books at this point. But yeah, super happy with them. And I think that is going to be a big team going forward to really look at because of NRG's evident, lack of performance in this game. I don't think NRG, clearly are as dominant as they once were in Gears 4. But most importantly, I think this game actually favors more so players like you see on Rec. I don't think this game allows for NRG's really quick-paced individual skill to get them out of situations and clutch up as often. Mainly, let's think about the damage and the movement speed. It's a completely different game in that sense compared to Gears 4. So, yeah, amazing stuff for Rec, and I think they're going to be very happy going forward in Gears 5.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I wanted to take away from it is, yes, okay, we do have a new champion, but they are not unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination, I think. And you know what? I want to... We can hop on about Rec all day, but I want to sort of move on to the EU side of things, talk about the EU performance overall. Of course, we're talking EU's finest and the rest of the boys. Well, I say EU's finest and the rest of the boys. It was actually Regal Reserve, formerly our Damage, who did end up finishing the highest out of Europe But let's talk about the fact that Reciprocity were one round away from getting beat off EU's finest. Then the EU's finest find themselves finishing top 16, and Reciprocity finished there first, of course. So, a strange turn of events. Let's talk about the highest placing team first. Let's talk about Riga Reserve, formerly Art Damage. Good placement for them in the end. I think we sort of discussed it that a top 8 placement would be a fairly decent performance from them. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair result for them.
You want to take it, Toby? Go right ahead. I want you to speak, and I'll give you my thoughts.
Sure thing. I think that's an excellent result. Let's be real. I mean, first of all, outplacing EU's finest, you'd never see it coming. Never saw that coming, especially for a first event. You think EU's finest would have a really good chance against the less practiced North American teams than in, say, future events. But in terms of a top 8 finish for Regal, like, you can only be happy with that. They actually got knocked out by Reciprocity in the quarters in the end. You can't. It doesn't matter how good you are at that point. EU's finalists will probably get knocked out at that point. They've gone as far as they possibly can, and they saw themselves through to the bitter end until inevitably, as I said, they come against REC. I think going forward for them, their goal now that they've proven that they can perform on the international stage at this level so well, is to actually solidify such performances, really do the studying in order to confidently take on EU's finest. That's going to be the important part for them. Also, they can start looking at international practice now as well. They've proven that they're close enough to the international squads that they should perhaps be mingling with them, time zones allowing. But more so, EU's finest, very disappointing for them.
I'm going to quickly put something in the conversation here. A guy tweeted out saying, Regal Reserve are now the best team in Europe, full stop. Do we believe that?
I mean, it's a 1 game differential between EU's finest, a 1 map differential, and I don't think we can confirm that after 1 map at a LAN after we had the season of a Pro League, right?
Colin, you agree?
I disagree wholeheartedly with Blaze. I hate to say it. I think EU's finest ended up in the bracket of death side of things, where you have those former world champions. You also had Mazer over there. Like, no matter what EU's finest was going to do, they were going to have to go through somebody big time to get to where they were. And then they end up falling to Regal Reserve for that chance to play. And it was one of the things, like, right after that match, I was watching, and I said, damn, I wonder what happened. And I kept watching it. And it was actually funny to me, something I talked about in the week that I got to go and do an interview with Cheddar about the Pro League. I said, our damage has to trick EU's finest into playing their game. And one of the things you got to watch in that matchup on Side Station, I sat there and watched every single spawn in that matchup, and I enjoyed every single moment of that matchup because of the fact that EU's finest started falling for the R damage game. They started playing into the snipers and the 1v1 battles with, like, Cougars and Strikers and Zorkos. And it's one of those things where it's like, guys, you realize if y'all just step back and play your, like, the setup game that y'all have been doing all Pro League, you're gonna mollywop these kids. And instead they kept going, well, let me get in this shotgun fight. Let me get in that shotgun fight. And I was like, I don't know how they're tricking them into do this. I don't know if there's something in the water in California. If there's something in the air, but it happened. Yeah,
even to a point though, EU's finest have always sort of been there on the shotgun battle sort of front as well. They've always sort of had everyone's number to a point in Europe from that aspect as well. It seems as if from what Rubix was tweeting, it seemed to be a confidence. I think the way they lost Reciprocity, the big factor in their tournament. If they've gone to it was last map, I do believe. I didn't catch it specifically. I was just
up 4-1 on Vascar and then dropped 4 rounds in a row.
Yeah, 4 rounds in a row. So it was very early in the morning. Please forgive me for not watching.
No, you're good. I was losing my shit because I couldn't believe, like, there was, I think it was don't hold me to it, but if I remember exactly correctly, it was a 1v1 that I thought Hydrone had in the bag on E Hill, and shit went downhill. And once Hydrone died, I looked around and I said, I think that might spell bad news. And then it was 4-2, and then it was 4-3, and then it was 4-4. And I said, it was like losing that 1v took Ben out of the fight. And I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's just needing somebody on that team to kind of pump everybody up. I thought Rubix was amazing at doing that. So I'm not sure if Rubix needs to be a little more, puff your chest out type leader to kind of keep everybody hyped, keep everybody in the fights, and not let anybody get down on themselves. But that's what it seemed like to me.
Yeah, I mean, he said himself, if he could stop the players getting in their own heads, then they wouldn't have a problem. And that has to be the case, you think? I mean, just to show that they went toe-to-toe all the way and probably should have beat Reciprocity, to then see Reciprocity go on to win it, for me at least gives them, me as a completely biased and EU fan, gives me the hope that they can hang. Absolutely, again. We sort of can realize that they can be there. Obviously, the confidence is taking a hit and they need to fix that massively because you can't go on to lose and just let your heads go. We know they have the talent. It's clearly there after a very close game with Rex. So I think, if they can fix their issues, they should be fine in Mexico and we could see the result out of them. I think they could at least take some solace, and I think European fans will take something from that game and say, well, they were pretty much there with them. Has to be.
Yeah. EU's finest performances over the years, Gears 4 included, there have been many times where we've seen them go against teams where it should be a straight 2-0 or 1-0 easy map victory, easy match victory throughout, but oftentimes they can just fall by the wayside and not perform as you'd expect, losing in shotgun battles individually, making basic mistakes as a team, and oftentimes I think that is because of the head game. There's so much pressure riding on their shoulders as being the team of the continent to perform on an international scale. They work so hard to wake up, or rather, wake up at a different time, completely change your time zone, your sleep schedule to mix with the NA and practice online in the early hours of the morning. And they've had so many great performances, but also really, not great performances, shall we say, again, potentially due to the head game, that I think the pressure just overwhelms them. I'd like to see perhaps those players allow for a start Rubik's to perhaps be a bit more proactive in helping with that. I'm not, I'm only making assumptions as to, what goes on behind the scenes. But my assumption is that these, Phelpsy, Craze, Hydro, and these are very passionate players. And I'm not sure if they would allow Rubik's to take such a proactive role in trying to help in their mental game. I think I could imagine them really allowing the heads to go down at the earliest moment, and Rubik's by default not being able to really get into the heads and try to help them or offer some support, if that makes sense. And so, maybe, just maybe, if the team could sit down and in a as mature fashion as possible, have these heart-to-heart conversations where we can really ensure every player is on the same page and the coaching role to be fully optimized, because I do think it's a mental thing and not necessarily players or team.
Okay, that's fair. Let's for that, Colin, anything else to say on EU's finest?
No, like I said, when I was trying to break it down between them and Regal Reserve, I said that they kept getting caught in a trap, and it's one of those things where I don't care how good you are at one thing or another, you always play to your strength. I mean, if I could sit down with those boys and preach to them, I'd be like, God dang it, guys, just play to your strengths. You're not going to meet a boxer who's quick and has a great jab who's going to go in there and start throwing haymakers. That's just ridiculous. He's going to go in there, he's going to use his jab to create space, and when somebody tries to poke in on him, he'll hit him with a quick uppercut. And that's one of the things. When I said they got trapped by Regal Reserve, I really do believe that. I think Regal Reserve baited them into a haymaker fight, and they ended up losing a haymaker fight when they should have gone in there, use that quick jab, keep that space, get that set up, and do the right things. Do what they do. I know we shouldn't use the play your game scenario, but when you actually get to see that there's multiple styles to the way you can play this game, from the Latin American Wolfpack to the EU setup and take you down 2-1 to the NA, we're going to out-rotate you. I mean, there's multiple play styles, so play your game kind of becomes viable in this game when you can actually break down what their game is, and I really think that's what their game is, that 2-1 hill, get the setup, control the power weapons, control the pacing, and make you try to come into them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right, and I mean, obviously we didn't get to see the game between themselves and Regal, so I'll take your word. But let's talk about the other European teams. Let's talk about Obey. Let's talk about Rated R. Rated R finishing slightly better than Obey Alliance, of course. 16, whereas Obey Alliance, top 32. Not a good performance from Obey. And that will actually mean that they drop into relegation for Pro League January. So they're going to have to make sure that they keep themselves in there. I think they're a team with a lot of promise. That's the thing that bothers me about Obey. Sometimes we see some fantastic performances out of them, specifically in the Pro League. Like, I mean, the Slayers were there all season long. I didn't see them play over the weekend, so it's hard to say, but a top 32 result tells its own story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll be too happy about that, but also perhaps not too surprised either. They've had some, like EU's finest, some performances on land that have not been up to par by anyone's stretch of imagination. And I think they'll be kicking themselves, but again, also not too surprised. This really does come down to preparation. It comes down to mental game, and especially in the preparation front when it comes to Obey rather than EU's finest, because you really do need to research how the North Americans play. You know, these might not be staying up at the later night practicing against these teams from Latin America and North America, and so you really need to sit down, pen and paper, and find out. And every member in your team find out what is different, what do we need to be prepared for. We need to have all our strats ready to go to be able to respond. So if something is really not working well, which once was a big strength of yours against European teams, you have the ability to change it up. I mean, in terms of rated R as well, they didn't have the greatest of starts to the event. And I thought they were going to bomb out at one point because it was just so disappointing from them. But well done to them to get to round two. They eventually lost to Reciprocity in the same round as East Finest, lost to Regal Reserve. So, they've done very well there to actually get that far, beating in round one i7 KX, which was one team that was doing very well for themselves and putting themselves on the radar all over
South
Twitter.
America. What?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, so disappointment on those side of things. I said rated R managed to get through, but I think overall, from a European perspective, disappointing weekend. I think that fire that got lit last year, so the embers remain at this moment in time, unfortunately. Hopefully we can see a better performance, but I think the thing that disappoints people is that we know that Europe as a region are capable. And I think that is what that's what disappoints people the most. So hopefully in the future we do see teams from Europe go on to do better, as we are of course going to be horribly biased on the show. Let's talk about the LATAM region though. Really good showing from them once again. We can't praise them enough, right, Colin? I mean,
those boys are
as a whole,
scary good, and a lot of their scary good comes from. It almost seems like nobody came in ready, willing, and able to defend against that wolf pack. There were so many times, even with Ghost, like when Ghost was beating up NRG in that Swiss matchup they had. Ghost was running 3 or 4 people into the same area, and instead of being able to catch them and lancer them down or get a couple of extra downs to make them play maybe a little more defensively because they'd be afraid to go there on their third down and go out, it was just like people were like, oh my God, there's 4 people within 5 feet of each other. How do we defend against it? And it's like, yo, y'all didn't watch for 4 weeks as they basically ran through their own competition with the same strat. Like you've got to match that. You've got to find a way to either break them up, use an area of effect like a shock or an ensign to kind of funnel them or force them into a bad fight. And it was just amazing to watch, especially Estral, even in the finals, Estral going up against Reciprocity. Reciprocity gets those setups. They get those Lancers in. And then all of a sudden, Estral's like, all right, that's fine. We'll fly 3 people down the same hallway, and I don't know what you're going to do against that. And it was like, wait, you said how many? And it was like, I just was amazed to watch that Wolfpack. I think that's one of the best things to come out of that region. And I hope everybody in that region plays that way, because that means open bracket is going to be a bloodbath come Mexico City.
Oh, yeah. We're excited for Mexico, especially with the way that these teams did. And let's move on to the inner workings of the tournament itself, though. Of course, that we did move on to the Swiss format, which, for me personally, I've always preferred it over most. I think it's the best format a tournament organizer can use when applicable, and I thought it worked great, personally. What are we thinking? Are we preferring this to the whole groups then into double elimination sort of carry on, or do we like Swiss into single?
That's the thing. I don't know about single at the end. I just don't know about the single, but that's the thing. I really liked how it was different, first of all, so that won me over immediately. And when I look at the previous 4 groups that we used to have, that system to start off every Gears 4 tournament, I also thought that oftentimes was a little bit too predictable. You'd go over each group, you'd be like, no surprise there. Next group, no surprise that. Next, oh, a little bit of an upset. Okay, next, no surprise, and so it got a little bit predictable, a little bit stale. And oftentimes the way the seedings worked, the teams that ended up in what group, oftentimes it seemed like it was very common. It was a very common layout that we had seen time and time again. I think Swiss Group A, Swiss Group B, I think that brings a bit more variety. And it's nice to have all those Pro League teams just split up into two distinct groups, as you can, see everyone play against each other, and you see all those play styles that Colin's talking about clash. I kind of like that bit. It's the honestly, it's the single elimination following. I'm not too sure on. I'm undecided.
Hold on, I'll get your opinion in a second, but
Yeah.
do you think that is mostly due to how fast escalation is now?
You talking to me or Toby?
No, I'm talking to Toby.
That's what I thought. I was like, that's why I was waiting.
Maybe. I think
Maybe if
that
we're
might
deeper
be-
map pool or with another game mode. Possibly, you maybe be a little bit more receptive to single elim, or are we just still about giving people chances?
I think a great middle ground between this, nonetheless, is what Fallout suggested, and that is to have quarters best of 5. Was that best of 5, best of 3?
The semis and finals are the only ones that were best of 5. Everything else was best of 3.
Best of 3, yeah. So make it best of 5 is what I'm saying. Quarters. And honestly, on paper, ideally, in an ideal world, the round before that also would be nice to see best of 5, given it's single limb. But at least quarterfinals, that's the bare minimum for me.
It's all time constraints. There is that to play into it, but I mean, I don't know PGL scheduling, but I think it's
that's
one of these things.
I'm trying to juggle in my head time constraints,
because they would have been setting up for 7 rounds because the late change came in. Colin, what was your opinion on the
Swiss, as Toby said, I love the format of it. I love getting to see, the different play styles coming together. I like the 2 big groupings and making people play that. I am completely and utterly decided, though, on single elimination for 2 main reasons. Single elimination made every game, especially behind the mic, I'll tell you right now, every single game I got to cast in elimination felt like somebody was going to the chopping block like round 1. Like you felt like you lost that first round, and I'm like, oh my God, it's over. They're going home. It's all over. It's going crazy. So single elimination just brings that level of intensity, that super hype that I don't think you can achieve with much other tournament formats. And my other reasoning for it, one word and one word only, sports. Literally every other major sport in the world, like if you lose, you go home. Sorry about you. You don't win the Super Bowl to have to beat the team that was undefeated coming to the Super Bowl twice just to win the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? That'd just be ridiculous. So single elimination to me, it mirrors that real life aspect. I don't want to say we have to aspire to it, but like having that aspiration of wanting to be that worldwide audience, you need something that people can bring those strings in. You can bring those heartstrings in where somebody can look at it and be like, oh, I know what this is like. I can imagine what it feels like.
It's easy, isn't it? You don't need to sit there and watch esports tournaments before to understand how these. I say maybe Swiss you do. Swiss isn't as simple as a lot of people maybe like, but single elim, I do get you in terms of like simplicity of it. Toby, any counter to that?
I find myself agreeing more with Colin now after he says
he's convinced you.
I literally forgot. But I didn't even consider sports. I was thinking more esports.
I didn't consider sports
in the matter. But yeah, single elimination. I think was very nice. Actually, it was a breath of fresh air when you think back because of all the long double elimination first to 7s. When you flip down his head and have first to 5 and single elimination. I think, the intensity was definitely ramped up, and that was actually one of the favorite things for me watching it. So, we go again. Hey,
you're still on the fence, but you're closer to my side of the fence.
Let's run it back. Let's have another one and see how I feel after another event.
There we go. Let's get it, baby.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what made this tournament maybe a little bit faster was the fact that we did change to 5 rounds a couple of weeks out before San Diego. The ultimate test was LAN, of course. We're still on board with these changes, right? We liked them straight from the off here on Changing Gears. We were fully on board. Not everybody else was, but I think everybody is 5-round trial. I think everyone's pretty happy with it, right?
I'll be shoveling coal into that train to keep it going too. I don't give a damn, boy. I got the shovel, I got the coal, I got the furnace. I'm ready to keep that sucker running all night long, if you ask me.
Yeah, 100%. First to 5 is the way to go. Like,
it's the way for escalation, 100%.
So many reasons. Viewership, ranked, competitive play. We get to see more maps. The economy, weapon placement, shall we say? I think every weapon placement matters that much more. And I would say more, but I don't want to ramble. I think it really is just a way to go. I think we should end this conversation as a community at this point, because it was just so hyped to watch every map. And let's just think about it in relation to the event itself. Think about how many comebacks we had, or what thought could be comebacks, where teams really got nervous, compared to the lack of times we had with First to 7, where we were literally just waiting for Optic at the time to get 2 more rounds because they were 5-0 up. Comebacks are actually possible at this point. And that is the thing that matters so much in spectating esports, in my opinion. You don't just want to have to, they're about to come back in half an hour when the game's done because I know they're about to win, whatever it might be.
I just want to quickly go to just to address what Vandal said. For anybody listening on podcast, he said, I think the full cycle should be run if it's single, who is good at what map. Execution could be brought in as a tiebreaker. Something like CSGO, they run 15, goes down. Right, first and foremost, what I will say is that I think to play the full map pool, you would have to have an insane amount of time. So I think that's your first issue. In terms of best out of 3s, a time constraint thing, would everybody like to see more best out of 5s? Absolutely. Does the tournament need to finish by a certain time on a Sunday night? Absolutely, above everything else. I think you need to conform to time restraints, and these are things that are put into place because of that. Of course, for integrity, we'd love to see every single map played. I think that would determine who is the best team. Who's good at every single map, sort of thing. But we just do not have the time to do. There is no physical. And CS:GO, yes, they run for, but they only have a certain amount. And as I think the point is, the finals happen on a Sunday, and that's all that happens on a Sunday. So you can have a best out of 5 first to fucking 17 million or whatever, because you've only got one game to play. I think it's all scheduling. It's all scheduling.
You mind if I bring up a stupid point real quick, because I really want to hear your opinion on this side of that talk about running a full cycle. I need to hear the flip side of it, because there's something that happened at the tournament that I had to question something. I was like, I wonder how this will happen or how this will work. When you go to the best of 5, okay, they do ban, pick, so on and so forth. Do you believe that it should be pick, and then ban, so that there's a chance that, like, if I'm going into a matchup, Tunn, and I know that you are the worst district team on the planet, my first pick is automatically district. I'm going up 1-0, period, end of story.
I think doing it the way that it's done, it reduces these crux bans. It's a crutch ban. It happens every time, and it's going to happen.
I don't like that.
I don't like it bans either. But then at the same time, whoever gets to pick the first map first automatically wins the veto process, because they get to pick the map that they're bad at instantly, and you have no rebuttal to that. You have no counter to that. But then you could pick the map they're bad at, but maybe it's a bad matchup. I think the way that it works, the way that it is there for a reason. So it's not a case of pick their bad map, done, and then you automatically get that advantage. It's like ban, because then you can take away their better maps and sort of see what we're fucking with after that. You know what I mean? It's in my mind, I get what you're saying. I completely get what you're saying, because it would throw curveballs, etc. But I think the reason is that way is so teams who don't pick first or don't get a ban whatever first don't get completely fucked every single.
I just want every team to have a 8 map pool. Okay,
I don't want to hear
in a perfect
world. In a perfect world, yeah.
Damn it! Play your maps, play them all good, deal with it.
This is for me.
I can't say 8.
This is for me another big reason why we need another game. I think it means teams have to be deeper on another level. It's not just about being good at escalation, being good at like 3 or 4 maps on escalation. About being good on 3-4 maps at escalation and being good on 3-4 maps at whatever other fucking game mode we're playing. You have to be able to do both, or then we see storylines develop in terms of, well, this team with a really good escalation, but they just dropped an escalation against a team who are, for example, say, a really good execution. Now this is there in a bad spot, and can they bring it back? Can they win the execution? And it just, immediately it's just broadcast intensity. Storylines. We fucking love storylines.
You're getting that from that other place. You know that, right? That's that other place starting to infect your mind and poison you.
Hey, don't talk to me about the other place right now. But yeah, I just think, for me, it makes perfect sense. I think it doesn't fix a lot of the problems, but I think it's that teams have to be complete. It's about just being good at escalation. It's a very different game mode. It's at times quick, it's at times fast, but I don't think that it is a total encapsulation of who's the better Gears. Maybe.
Well, I think you almost got to see a little bit. Like it's. I was trying to explain this late on a Sunday night to somebody. I know we want the other game mode, or people like to push for the other game mode, especially like execution. They want to bring that back and add things to it or make it different so that you don't have all the stalemates. For me, it was so weird to try to explain to people that in that final round of map 3 on Exhibit, we basically had execution outside of Advers and Icy. Advers and Icy were still sitting at 2 respawns apiece, so they each had 3 lives. Everybody else was on 0.
You get that.
I'm like, my God, guys, like we're getting as close to execution without it being execution as possible. I'm giving you like it was like drinking diet execution. It had it had half the calories of execution, but all the flavor. You know what I'm saying, baby?
Yeah. I know we're going down this rabbit hole, but quickly. I think
we do it every week, Toby.
We do it every week. I eat it. I
have nothing else to talk about.
The thing is, I agree with Colin. It's a matter of, I think the main benefit of 2 modes especially is that you can have a specified map pool for the mode. If you know that, say, Exhibit works extremely well for escalation but horrid for Axie, you can have it in one map pool but not the other.
Oh well, yeah, absolutely. I think that allows you to then not have to say, I'll put escalation on every single map, even though, like, say for example, the community at the beginning didn't love Vazgar. Maybe they could turn around and say, well, let's take Vazgar out of escalation, but let's put an execution so doing it doable.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're past that point now because escalation maps stay that probably even if a second game mode did.
Execution at time, I mean escalation rather, as Colin said, it does turn into execution. It seems like with 3 wings, but I just think there's a lot of benefits to be had from execution, like single life mode from a spectator point of view, historically, and I think when you compare the 2 modes, they are in many ways different, but also similar. Escalation, respawn, execution, not. 3 rings or 1 attack and defend objective, for example, with execution. Power weapons can always be down in certain places in execution. On escalation, you place them. There's certain comparisons you can make between the 2 modes, which I think makes it quite interesting. And I think just both of them being together would be very wholesome. I'd really like to see it. I think it'd be great fun.
That word. It's wholesome. It'd be wholesome, baby.
Colin? Of 2 game modes, I don't know anybody who wouldn't be on the train. I think we're talking about trains again, Colin, but
I have such a weird standpoint on it because I've come from that old school being a fan and watching. I come from that side of things. I loved watching execution. I loved watching teams go at execution, but I got so used to one single game mode that it never crossed my mind until like we had the King of the Hill days, King of the Hill. But we don't talk about those days. We just leave those alone. But like from the side of things where it was always execution, I was like, I never dreamt of having a second game mode, so I never argued against it. And then with escalation, that's the game mode that they like. It's been kind of thrust upon us with Gears 4. And there was a lot of things that everybody was like, well, this should change and that should change and this should change. And then come Gears 5, when we get to San Diego and they have the changes to make it shorter. They have the tuning changes to make the weapons more viable, like Lancers more viable, Crossings more viable. Different play styles start to pop up. And I kind of look at it from the aspect of like, baby, if it's not broken, why are we trying to fix this shit right now? They put forth all the effort to make this game mode as good as it can be. I'm not sure why we need to throw something into it when we're just getting to a point where everybody's getting on the train of loving how escalation is playing out. You know what I'm saying?
That's the thing. That's where I come from, right?
Why not more?
Escalation is a very good mode. I've always praised Escalation. I think it's brilliant. It's more so that execution was so good as well, and one tweak away from being incredible, that you kind of ask that same question. If it's broke, why are we trying to fix it? If it ain't broke, why are we trying to fix it when we switch to Gears 4? Escalation comes out of nowhere when we literally could have just had an objective on execution and no one would have bat an eyelid and thought, really? Execution again? Like, can you imagine that? If no one ever heard of Escalation, we just played Execution for Esports again, that would be fine. Everyone would be happy with that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not that Escalation's bad. It's just Execution's great. Just try and keep it succinct. Why not both? Let's have more.
Yeah,
I knew it was coming. I knew you could not just say it, leave it at that. Why not both?
Why not both? Why not both? Why not make people have to be better?
Because my blood pressure can't take it, okay?
Colin,
I was already about
nobody
to
gives
die
a fuck about
times.
your blood pressure. You'll be fine, okay?
I better get on a treadmill quick. I better start to running.
Oh god! All right, well, let's move on then, because I feel it is a rabbit hole and go, and we've been down it before, and if we keep going, we will go far too far down the rabbit hole. Eric Steele, red pill, blue. Let's talk about the 2v2 and the free for all. A nice incentive to bring in. I did like to see that. Disappointed to see the EU boys losing the final. I thought we were going to have at least one victory there this weekend.
That was what, Ashens and J Rage, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted, because they didn't put the names on. They didn't put the names on the gamer tags, which frustrated Benson and I. And I looked at Benson and I was like, I think one of them is J Rage. I feel like I recognize that kid, but I don't want to swear to anything and then call him J Rage and then sound like an asshole.
Yeah.
You don't need to try very hard. Anyway, what did we think of 2 games? I don't know if we caught them. Toby, maybe in a sleep like me.
Yeah, I think I was actually. I watched in the morning after. I remember. I really liked the 2v2. I think it's come a long way, as we discussed on the last show, from when we didn't have pistols and Ash and Incisive. They camped in spawn for the win. Remember that? And you can't blame them because competition with the pistols prevents that. And I think it really makes for a very speedy game mode, which really works on side stations as a result, organizing, scheduling wise. My only regret is that we didn't see more. I'd have liked to have a Bravo stream and during the intermissions, flick over that Bravo stream as fast as I can and see what's going down in the 2v2 / free-for-all. Free-for-all would be hype as hell to watch, I think, when you have 14 finalists in that mode. If we are sticking with 14, who knows, in esports.
Some have argued it's too many.
John was asking for 10. There's great arguments for that. But imagine just 10 or 14 of the top players in free-for-all, with Colin and whoever else going crazy over what on earth is just occurring. 6 kills at once. Mental kills him. Frontal kills. Oh my god! And I think that'd be extremely exciting to watch. Did we? I don't think we saw any free-for-all on broadcast, did we?
I tried looking. I think honestly, it was just like there was so many variables that could have gone wrong because they hadn't played the game outside of it was like the first time where the masses got their hand on it. And so by masses, I literally just mean anybody outside of the studio. And they were having to figure out one of the cool things was actually getting to sit in on it and hear about how they determine the tiebreakers. Because at one point, do you both know Letnick? Kenny Bounce's better half. Letnick was tied in kills and had a chance to move forward, but she had it was one more death or whatever. And I was like, well, that's a reasonable. But then she the guy above her was tied with the guy above him in kills and deaths, and they had to go to some third tiebreaker. And I was like, yo, this could get really interesting if you're only moving forward the top 5 players from each heat to like keep bringing them into a different lobby, or top 7 players, whatever it is. That could get really confusing. So I think that's why they didn't show any of it, is they wanted to try to iron out how they're going to do side tournaments and stuff, and what tiebreakers they'll use, and so on and so forth.
I think that should be an in-game thing, shouldn't it? That should be based off a few different things. Maybe like what? I don't want to say assists, you know what I mean? About damage dealt, that sort of thing. They should be predetermined things, even just in an online setting.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think when I think about free for all and trying to work out who did best, I don't like the idea of judging it on like one game, unless it was like really the grand final. I think if we can do like, I'm not sure if this would work, honestly.
They did 2 games.
Sure
the heats were always 2 games.
Right. Okay. And I think if you judge or rank people based on points, so if they finish first, they get 1 point. If they finish second, they get 2, and kind of the lowest, ranking in points goes through, etc. And have like the top 5, top 7 have like a very, fair window to go on. I think that would be great. But it's just a question of having the ability to play enough games to where you can confidently feel like you've got the best players in the matches going forward.
That's right.
Obviously there's kills, assists, deaths, etc. But I don't want it to be that's the way we differentiate between players going forward, because that seems really,
Generic.
on the knife's edge, lucky perhaps, given spawns and stuff and all the different variables that can go on in free for all. Definitely we want to keep that to a bare minimum and focus on, end match results, shall we say.
You want to know what the coolest thing was, though? Honest to God, from both of those tournaments? In the 2v2s, you had guys like Heza, Firearm, Tristan, Crushmo, Domes, Kraz, Ash, and Sice. All those people were playing in the 2v2, and we had 4 brand new finalists. In free-for-all, one of the kids from South America, as we continue to push the idea that we are going worldwide, we're going to be this worldwide game mode, one of the kids from South America won the free-for-all. If that's not the best possible storyline for those 2 side tournaments, like, hey, look, Jack, you might be an open bracket team and you get knocked out. We'll still sign up for the 2v2 because God knows you got a shot. You got a chance. If you just hitting them shots, you got a good look at getting some money to come out of here with.
Yeah, it's another option on the table for everybody who wants to go to the event, isn't it? It's more reason to go, which is all positive news. Let's move away from the competitive side. Operation 2 is now out. Free for all, of course, is now online, as I've seen you've both been playing it anyway. What are our thoughts now that everybody has had their chance to get a hold of it? Are we enjoying free for all? Are we having fun? Are we having fun?
Toby, you're better than I am, so I need you to take this first.
Oh, happily, mate. I've been sweating free for all. I won't lie to you. Coursework has been delayed for that reason also, and stress is building up. But
stress is building, so is my free for all rank
massively. Free for all. I actually played in a tournament last night somehow. I saw on my Twitter, Gao Amateur Night. Shout out to him. I believe that's his Twitter. Gao Amateur Night. He put on a free for all tournament. He talked about it before Operation 2. He's like, hey, let's put a prize pool on. There wasn't a prize pool in the end, but we got loads of really solid, great players. Blatantly, they scrim constantly, etc. That's kind of the level we're playing with. And we put on a big free-for-all tournament, shall we say, best of 3 games. I won 2. Just going to put that out there. Moving on fast. I really enjoy it, free-for-all, and I think this is going to be my main mode once it comes to ranked. I think it has so much potential. With the issues we have of finding games, it's literally impossible to find games as a 5 if you're above average in the game, even as a 3. I cannot find a King of the Hill game as a 3 unless it's peak time and one of those players is a low rank. It's impossible. I promise you, bearing in mind I'm on PC and I'm from Europe. Anyway, free for all is going to be my go-to mode. I just want them to make it as competitively friendly as possible. I want as much integrity thrown in there. It's already a bit of a clusterfuck with how many variables and the spawns and the fast action and the shotgun to the back and kill steals and whatnot. It makes me question, hey, have we got too many power weapons on the map? I felt like I spawned too many times with power weapons right in front of me. should we have a boom shot on the map, a really easy weapon to kill, or should we have a drop shot instead, so players actually have the ability to actually close the gap and get a kill and fight back? Or is it we're just going to give a boom shot every 60 seconds someone? I think the respawn time on the weapons as well was a little bit too quick. And there's always the issue of spawns. Like, spawns could probably be like improved, probably not perfected, especially with 14 players in the game. You also have to question, especially with ranked and esports, matchmaking in particular, do we need 14 players? It might be a bit difficult finding 14, lobby games constantly. As I said, population or whatnot, it could be very difficult. Just think, if you're a top rank master trying to find a lobby of 14, there's more ranks that aren't master in the game. Integrity goes down. You don't have a perfect high level game at that point. All in all, very, very fun. I'll play it regardless if it doesn't change. But I think we do really need to look at it and really be critical of free for all. As fun as it might be, let's get it as perfect as possible, because I think we have something amazing on our hands.
What were you saying, Colin? That was some speech from Toby.
That was a nice soliloquy. I liked it. You went on a little one, baby. Look, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I love the whole battle royale scene, so I can play those solo. But when it comes to Gears, when I don't have teammates, I'm gonna steal some of y'all words. I'm shite. I'm rubbish. What's the word y'all use for bad? So I'm giving it a go. I'm giving it my best, and I'm not terrible at it, but I understand why it's so appealing to the masses.
Losing is learning, Colin. Losing is learning.
I'll tell you what I did last night. I did a whole lot of laying on my back, watching people better than me win them games. But no, I enjoyed it. It's honest to God, over here on the NA side of things, when you were playing ranked, it honestly turned into just a glorified shoddy lobby. It was just, I could bounce faster than you, get closer to you, and then kill you. I was like, why isn't anybody using the power weapons? Please, God, somebody use a power weapon. So, I mean, I get what it is, but I agree with Toby. Look, for somebody like myself that's not going to go out and play free-for-all as much as a lot of other people, I want it to get to that level of perfection that Toby's talking about. Take the stuff like the breaker mace away. I don't really want to see a breaker mace. I don't want to see a boom shot. I don't really want it to be that campy. I want it to get to this pristine arena gladiatorial battle as close as it can be. Give me in a vacuum, these 14 players, who's the damn best one type shit. So I really think that that's the way that they should go with it. Because last night it was either a glorified shotgun battle, or it was coming around a corner and a guy with a breaker mace was just heave-hoeing over his shoulder. And I was like, well, that's the end of my life, boys.
Yeah, I agree on the breaker mace for sure. It just needs, I think you
it's pretty good.
Let's get it as
bring it back to competitive. Bring it in a competitive.
About that,
maybe
you get
not.
your side tournament. Look, you get your side tournament. You come over here, play the free for all in a side tournament. We'll be happy to let you come out there. We'll have you.
Yeah. So I'm going to move to questions from the chat. If anybody would like to get them in, we will be moving over to those in a second. First and foremost, though, let's talk about the first and foremost. Lastly, I should say, we're definitely towards the end of the show. Let's talk about who we thought was the best player. Who was the best player there? Who stood out to you?
Oh my goodness me! Oh no! I saw a lot of people mentioning Rushies. I feel like Rushies probably performed better in the past than he did at the event. I didn't think he looked like himself, as his usual aggressive self. Best player, I don't know. I just don't think it's Rushies. That's my first input into that. It's not going to be someone for NRG.
I'm just going to go and say Kenny because he's usually in here.
I can give you a top 3 and actually rank him top 3.
I think Colin could probably give him more detail.
Colin, you've seen all the games. You've seen all the games.
I got to sit there and prop my feet up and take it all in, baby. The third best player there, in my opinion, somebody who performed well above his weight class for what we're used to, but this tournament did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. Number 3 was Lava. He played on Mazer. Every time Lava had to win a fight for Mazer to beat NRG or for Mazer to move forward, even in the matchup before NRG, Lava was the guy they could count on to make shit happen. He played a bit of an IGL on one side of the map. He played in a lot of 1v1s that were crucial. They're close. He got clutched up. He clutched up twice he was probably the third best player in the building. And then Reciprocity figured out how to expose Mazer by being quicker to the hills than they were. They just out over rotated them, if that makes sense. The breakthroughs coming out of Reciprocity to force the troops back for Mazer is what killed them. So even then, Lava didn't perform underwhelmingly. He just, the fact that their team was getting outsmarted in certain aspects is what came back to bite them in the butt. The second best performer individually that put his team on his back in so many situations was Adverse from Astral. Without Adverse, Astral just they shit the bed without Adverse. There were so many times where he was either ahead in respawn economy, he made a clutch play with one of their secondary weapons that they'd put down or build up on homes. And in best case scenario, Adverse was just getting a lot of quick kills. He played smart. He would get people coming into the shotgun fight, that quick little over the cover, just L trigger, that boom, that pop shot. And then the person come into the hill and he'd wrap around on him and just get the quick kill, get the easy kill. And it was like he never came out of the thing bruised or worse for wear. So I would say Lava 3, Adverse 2, the number one best performing person in the building all weekend long, who did everything his team asked him to do and more, is Kenny Bounce, as you said, from Reciprocity. He was in every correct spawn position. He was always breaking hills. He did 2 different breakthroughs to save rounds for his team. And he was probably the best power weapon player. Whenever he had a torque, a drop, anything of that nature in his hands, he did the best job with those power weapons, bar none by far. Those would be the 3 most standout performers if you were to make me put a gun to my head.
I would never do that to you, Colin, but thank you anyway. But thank you anyway. Okay, so I mean, I think that's a fair evaluation. Let's move on to questions from the chat. There is a couple. First of all, from Mellow B23, how do you guys feel about the aim assist? Assuming that's what he means by asset.
Ooh.
We've had this conversation before, haven't we?
How long we got? My man.
We don't have that long. I still have to vote, so we don't have that long.
So something really quick. Shout out to PR. He brought this up on Twitter. I can't remember his exact words. Yeah. He said, was it to give aim assist to esports, to competitive playlists, and kind of basically have a middle ground between the two and have one universal tuning. Because I do think it's a little bit of an issue having 2 different tunings as a result. They are 2 different tunings. It's not called core competitive or whatever. It might not be as drastic a difference, but it's still two different tunings. Aim assist is huge in games. So it's an issue. Yeah. It's an issue having 2, but can we get away with having 1? I'm not sure, honestly. I'm not too sure about that. On paper, yeah, you could, but I would feel like the drawbacks of having extra aim assist in comp wouldn't be worth it for me. I feel like if you look at pro players' accuracy and movement, right now it's at a good balance. I feel like I don't want people to become even stronger with weapons that have such a sickening amount of damage at
weapons are powerful
range. At range, Lancer. Pistol is insane. Has anyone actually realized how powerful the pistol is on this game?
Active snub, baby.
I play with a mouse, right? Here it is in my hand. Half the time I have a snub in my hand. I barely use the Lancer because of how effective that snub is when you're hitting all your shots with a mouse. I feel like the guns are so strong that I do not want pros with extra aim assist on top. I think that's too much. I have always been a player that prefers less damage. I'm also a player that does prefer ranged battles and strafe battles rather than playing for one shots, holding shots, comp tuning Gears 4-esque. And so those are, I guess, my thoughts. It's tough, right? You need aim assist in a console shooter for controllers to work to some extent. And I don't think we could get away with 0 aim assist in all modes. I feel like it's a question of middle ground once again. My previous argument from several podcasts ago, give, at this point, free for all, 2v2 Nasher and King of the Hill, turn aim assist off, keep aim assist a more casual thing, TDM, Guardian, and quick play. That's it. I feel like there needs to be a really obvious divide between the two if we're going to have 2 levels of aim assist. One is very casual. TDM and Guardian, I don't think should be ranked at all. And I think all ranked modes should have aim assist off, and they should only include the most competitive modes. King of the Hill maybe just sliding in that category, but in an ideal world, I'd only have the esports modes, free for all and 2v2 Nasher in ranked. But there you go. Not sure how Colin feels about.
Well, so the problem with me trying to give an explanation on this is I'm not sure, since I'm self-admittedly technology illiterate and I wouldn't know how to begin to program aim assist or how to lower aim assist or heighten aim assist. I look at it kind of like a training wheels. Like I kind of want to look at it from the idea or the perspective of like when you do the quick play playlist, when you do the arcade or the blitz or whatever it is, where you're coming into the game and you have the massive amounts of players that are just hopping on, just trying the game out. I don't give a damn if the damn gun moves for you at some points. I want somebody just coming into the game to feel our movement, to feel how our game is played, and to have a little bit of a helping hand, kind of reaching out, trying to get them an extra kill here too, because there's a higher percent chance they'll play another game. And they might get a little bit better with the movement. They might get a little bit better with the gun. And then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? I'm getting pretty good at this quick play stuff. Let me go and try, team deathmatch, and then we kind of lessen it. We take the training wheels off a little bit. We unscrew the bolts just a little bit, so it's not like it's completely on its two wheels, but they're propped up off of the ground, and you got them there as almost like the bumper rails. You go in, it's not as much. You might miss a kill or two, and you might get a little frustrated, but with Gears, you tend to get that group of people that says, you know what, damn it, I'm going to learn to get it. I'm going to get better. Because if you're a Gears head, if you become a Gears fan, you have that drive. You have that kind of instinctual want to get better at the game. And then you go in, like kind of like you said, you go into those competitive tunings where it's escalation, it's free-for-all, it's 2v2 Nasher. I don't know if you can like take it all the way off, because I still feel like even right now, there is a level of stickiness to certain guns where it's not like they're helping you. You're not getting assisted, but there's a little bit of a stickiness. It's like having a spider web attached to the end of your bullet round. You're like, I'll catch an extra pellet here or two for no odd apparent reason. I also think the dark side of that coin is that we have to get past the stigma of calling it aim assist. People bitch when they die if they know aim assist is a part of a game, because then they immediately have an excuse. They go, I died because he was assisted to help kill me. Hell no, you got the same assist going on. Yo ass is just worse. So stop calling it aim assist is one of the things I think, or move past it mentally. Figure out a different word. Figure out how to move past the idea that it's aim assist, because I think there's still a stickiness to the guns. There's a stickiness to the bullets, not a magnetism. I know people like to use that term, but you've got to move past the stigma of calling it aim assist, and you got to look at it as training wheels. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think all modes can benefit from it. Our starter modes up to what I would call like our expert modes, our pro modes, however you want to word it.
Okay, cool. I'll quickly move on. So Explo ZX, Lobos.
I was wondering which one you.
Is asking what caused the collapse of NRG. What caused the choke of Estral? Now, I would say Estral finishing second isn't necessarily a choke, so I don't want to maybe move. We'll sort of move away from that one, just because I only want to go with one more question after this one. So, what caused the collapse of NRG? Colin, what do we think? Have they collapsed? They just have a bad event.
It's not a collapse. It's a bad event, yes. And it's off the back of the idea that they thought they could still outmaneuver. They could still outmaneuver, get up close, and get those one-hit quitters that they're so used to getting. There was, especially at the very end of the bunker map, when they were trying to take the home hill of Mazer, Summons bounced off of the cover he was on, was up against the wall, and then tried to wall strafe, just like slide against the wall, and he was just getting obliterated by a Lancer. So when he goes down, Solars comes off of that cover, goes to pick him up. Now you got two people in no man's land, and you're not fast enough to get back to that cover, and you're not fast enough to move past that cover to get the next possible kill. So it's one of those things where something that did work for them in the past, movement, that hastened fast pace, didn't work for them. But I think those five guys are still mechanically skilled enough, especially with a guy like Ashes behind them, to figure it out going to Mexico City. It's just going to make them scarier going forward.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. Slash has made the comment, actually summarized it. NRG got beat by Gears 5. I think Gears 5 is so different to Gears 4. And I think I touched upon this earlier, actually, in the show, that Gears 5 is just, it's so far away from what NRG was, Optic at the time, was so incredible at, like outmaneuvering, outplaying, clutching, that it really just limits them on an individual basis, each and every one of them, to be able to perform. I think what stood out to me is how proactive and how many kills Praised was getting. He was always on the front line, and there's a reason why. This game is Praised written all over it. Outplay using cover, keeping distance, play slow, and outsmart, not outskill, get in your face, mental, explosive start, and just run through people. Honestly, the amount of times I was spectating NRG individuals and just saw them being pinned down on a cover in situations on Gears 4 where they would be able to actually get a kill somehow consistently out of it, they had no hope in hell in doing that so many times on Gears 5. The guns are so much stronger. The way the game's played, holding shots is nowhere near as effective as it was in Gears 4. In fact, in Gears 4, it was relied upon so consistently that I think NRG have to really go back to the drawing board, maybe even play the game more on an individual basis to really get to master the game as well as they did Gears 4. That isn't to say that Gears 4 is better in that sense, because you can't, that, you know, you might interpret that as there is reduced ability to outplay people. Personally, I think there perhaps is less room because of the strength of the guns and the movement speed, but I don't think it's, you know, two ends of the spectrum. I think in the middle somewhere might be nicer. Gears 4 was not perfect. It was all about holding shots, I think, too much, playing up close range. So yeah, NRG, individually they have to adapt, and as a team, well, preparation. That's what it comes down to now as a team, is preparation and putting in those hours, and many hours of that to ensure they can get to Formula Dominance.
Okay. The final question to be asked. I read this one to you two boys. Was from S. Jackson, who's actually went on to say that he doesn't like Gears 5, but he wants this question answered anyway. How would I go about being a pro in Gears? From the UK, and I've been playing since I was 8 and 07. How do you go about being a pro?
Okay. All right. Let's assume you
answer in 60 seconds, Toby.
Let's assume you're starting from a very good point in terms of ranked and you consistently win that. Then let's move into game battles. I would suggest going and play it. Well, not game battles, excuse me. UMG.
Gears.gg, baby.
Gears.gg. Singles. I think they're a really good training tool. Literally play singles constantly. Like, don't play ranked anymore. Waste of time if you're that good. Just play singles, play doubles, play as many scrims as you can get in, and ultimately play the game of trying to get in as higher quality matches as possible over time. Improve your teammates in that sense, so you can play with different players. Improve your enemies, so they give you the stimulus to improve. I've always said this in argument, but people have said, hey, someone could be as good as Mental. They just haven't played Gears Esports yet. They just play ranked. And I tell them, impossible, because in order to be as good as Mental, you need to be exposed to the same stimulus. You need to be in that competitive environment to actually make you think, hey, I could actually outplay him here. There is a way to outsmart this person. I just haven't experienced it yet, if that makes sense. Okay, you need to be exposed in a suitable environment to actually develop the player. You can't get anywhere near as good as an NRG player or a pro player from just ranked. So, moral of the story, as many hours in as you can for competitive, with special focus on singles, because that really does that really just criticizes every decision you make, especially in singles. Decision making, very good, but also practice communicating, teamwork, etc.
Colin, same sentiments.
Don't be toxic. Find a team that you can practice with, and remember, steel only is sharpened by other steel, because then as that team gets better by playing better competition, you might move up in the challenger points, and there's a chance where somebody comes at you and says, you know what, boy, you're the best player on that team, and we might need you to get over that hump. You're not going to change our pro points, but we can drop one of our 5 players, because as long as you keep that core 3, you'll keep those points. You never know. The grass might be green on the other side. It might not be. But my biggest piece of advice is find a group of kids you're comfortable with, grow with them, and then use that same mindset, that same competitive mentality to keep getting better and keep moving forward. Challenger points and all that reset, and you got a whole brand new chance to make a name, baby.
There we go. Answered beautifully. Right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you very much for you two joining me once again. San Diego was a success, I think. I think most, if not everyone, enjoyed it. Maybe not EU fans so much. It's one of those things. Hopefully, as a European fan, things are better in Mexico. Hopefully. But thank you guys for watching. Any final shout-outs before we close this one out?
Thanks for another show, Chris. Thoroughly enjoyed.
You're welcome, pal.
Again, stressed. exhausted from the coursework.
You'll be fine.
I've left myself to catch up with due to Operation 2 in San Diego, but I don't care. It was worth it. Every single minute of free for all and San Diego minutes watched. Really
Hashtag
enjoyed.
worth. Hashtag worth. Colin.
Worth.
Colin.
I need you two to send me a book on how you two got so goddamn handsome. I need to work on that. I can't sit next to y'all and y'all keep
It's a
looking that
natural
good.
thing.
That's the problem.
Yeah, at least you'll never have to sit next to us in real life, Colin.
I hope not. I'll pray for the opposite outcome. I'll pray for the opposite.
Oh, right. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching Changing Gears. This will now be available if you came in late on our YouTube, probably tomorrow morning. So make sure you do follow the EGL YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at EGL. All of our Twitters are in the bottom there as well. I've got Toby's right eventually, about 10 weeks of having it wrong. But make sure you follow us. We will be posting this on Spotify and Apple. If you do search for Changing Gears, that's where it will be. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.